We start off with a pump. This is your pump panel. The engineer or your driver is primarily concerned with your pump panel. You have all these different gauges that show your pump pressure on each outlet, each discharge gate. These are your soft suctions or
Well, Norman, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that they should have any problem as far as I can see, because today is a new day, and this is our home, and so I think that, everyone should try to make everything go to keep our city and everything going.
Of course, aside from the individual cases of the girls, the broad issue is whether or not we're going to permit federal bureaucracies to conduct family planning programs, which include sterilization. And even if you concede that you could have some regulations which would control sterilization, you get to the ultimate issue of whether or not even parents of a minor child have the authority to deprive that child of the right to have children. And I think that our ultimate contention is that even under those circumstances, no parent can deprive a child of the right to procreate, which is probably the most personal right that anyone has under our Constitution.
Normally, it occurs as a result of persons coming into our family planning clinic seeking assistance. And from that, the individuals are advised as to the possible courses of action that could be taken. And if they decide on sterilization, and very, very few do, of course. We've only had about 11 in the last 12 months.
Does this include the 2 Ralph girls? Or was this 11 other than the 2 Ralph girls?
Well, the figures I have is just for the last funded fiscal year of the program, so it would not include the 2 young ladies that we're talking about now.
Does it have a breakdown in race on the figures, whether they were black and white or black and white?
The figures are just names. I could not tell by the name, of course, whether they are black or white. The only thing I do know is that they all are poverty persons. It appears that effective immediately and upon receipt, that we cannot obligate or spend any money. If this is true, this would mean that Montgomery Community Action is literally out of business, because the grant specified is for the funding of conduct and administration, that is the overhead management of all programs, and GCP, or General Community Programming, which includes the neighborhood service centers, our vocational training, our adult basic education program, our area outreach, and our summer feeding program. It could well affect the support of other agencies which we assist, especially during the summer months, such as the summer swimming program for poverty children, the summer program that has been federally funded at Alabama State, and several other similar programs. Sure, because at the present time, Family Planning Clinic is under HEW, and they are not funded at this moment by OEO.
So this suspension does not affect the Family Planning Clinic at this time?
This is my understanding from the message. The message only covers OEO.
Do you have any indication as to why their grant was not suspended?
No, I do not. I have not had any contact from Washington on this.
Would you like to know?
Very definitely. We would like to know exactly where we stand.
Do you have any indication as to when you will find out what the suspension means and how many agencies within this general agency it affects?
I hope to have that answer before the day is over.
And when did your parents, your mom and dad, find out that they had done an operation on you?
I think that Wednesday.
Staff members at this office say they don't know where the director, Mrs. Aurelia Dixon, is, nor do they know when she will return. When this reporter called by phone and asked when she would be back to work, the answer was she will be back when she gets back. Efforts to get inside the office and talk with staff members have been futile. They have locked the doors and will only peer out of the windows. Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News, reporting.
What did you find out later had happened? I mean, they did an operation, right?
Yeah.
For what?
Keep from having children.
When did you find out that that's what they had done?
That Monday. I missed it that Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
Well, now, do you believe at this point that you can still have children if you would want them?
Yes, sir.
Copies of it will be submitted to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, and it is the hope of this committee that the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights will use this information and similar information which it will gather from similar committees across the nation and come up with and recommend to the President and to the Congress to introduce federal legislation which will include, among other things, minimum standards for persons in penal institutions across the nation.
Mr. Gray, you pre-filed a bill several weeks ago along these same lines. Do you feel like once the recommendations of this commission have been sent in to the proper authorities, do you expect to have any public opposition to having conditions improve and some rights restored to prisoners?
Because the bill which I pre-filed has nothing at all to do with this hearing. It's altogether an independent situation, the result of a matter that I have been working on ever since I've been in the legislature and even before. The information, however, which will come out of this hearing, we believe will show what the conditions are in the state of Alabama.
In 1954, Martin Luther King Jr. was 25 years old when he moved into this house, which is the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church parsonage. He celebrated at least 5 birthdays while he lived here.
We're going to Washington to demand an economic bill of rights.
Yes, sir.
So that these problems that have surrounded our lives can be removed. Now, there's another thing I want to say. We are going to Washington to beg. We are going to Washington. We are going to Washington to demand justice. There's the feeling that America is not true to its own creeds. The vast majority of black people in the United States are smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society.
Tonight, a memorial service is planned to be held in honor of the birthday of Dr. King at the Holt Street Baptist Church, where most of the early planning for the assault on racial injustice was held and launched by Martin Luther King Jr. and other people involved in the movement here in Montgomery. Martin Luther King Jr. is dead, but he lives on symbolically in his photo on the walls of millions of homes of black people, along with the photos of Jesus Christ, Robert and John Kennedy. Had he lived, Martin Luther King Jr. would have been 44 years old today. Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News, reporting.
Joe, what's the first thing you plan to do as a Montgomery City Councilman?
Believe it or not, I'm going to answer the roll. And secondly,
that'll be unique.
Secondly, then I will hope that we will really get a report on the status of the city. And then I want to get right to some of the things that concern the citizens of Montgomery, and particularly District 3. I'm concerned, as I said earlier, that the area, say, North Montgomery, where there's no sewage, there's still a lot of outdoor toilets. I think that's an area we got to deal with. We also have this in some other areas. We got to deal with the problem in our housing projects. We got to really come up with some better services for the citizens who live there, and we got to deal with the unemployment problem. And I think these are some of the concerns that I hope we would look at.
Well, just saying that was fine as long as you were on the outside of the power structure. Now that you're on the inside, though, what kind of things do you plan to do about these problems?
First, I don't consider myself as being a part of the power structure. I want to represent the people out there that I've always represented. And I think that we'll have to see, in terms of what the city can do itself first with some of these problems. And I'm sure that some of the problems can be eliminated by sound physical responsibility in government. And as I said even earlier during the campaign, it's going to be necessary for us to have a committee to try to attract new industry into Montgomery. I don't mean industry that require PhDs. I'm talking about industry that where people, the average person on the streets, can get a job and make a living. The industry that will take people off of welfare. The industry that will eliminate the necessity for a lot of food stamps by giving a man a good paying job so that every man can feel that he is really contributing to his own well-being.
I take it by that you mean you don't particularly care for what the Montgomery Chamber of Commerce has been doing along that line.
No, I definitely don't have any respect for what the Chamber of Commerce has been doing, particularly as it relates to the Chamber's action in blocking Ford Motor Company from locating an assembly plant here in Montgomery on the poor theory that it may very well cause the rates to be increased for other workers in the Montgomery area. And so certainly in that regard, I don't like it, and if the Chamber of Commerce, unless the Chamber of Commerce can show me something differently, I propose that we don't subsidize them anymore from city funds. I just don't want to give the Chamber of Commerce one nickel.
Well, of course, the Chamber of Commerce would dispute very strongly your contention that they are the ones that have kept any industry out of the area.
Well, they're going to have to carry the burden of proof to show what they're doing to bring it in. They can deny anything they want to, but not only shall we look at the past record, we ought to look at future performances. And if the Chamber of Commerce is not bringing industry into Montgomery, which will affect the average man on the streets, which will really get people jobs, then I still don't want the Chamber of Commerce to have one nickel of public funds. In fact, I don't want to have it anyway.
Getting on to other issues, like the housing problem in North Montgomery, does the discontinuation of the use of Jackson Heights in southwest Montgomery give you heart that perhaps the city is going to start moving out of some of the instant slums it has managed to create over the years?
Well, I would hope that we would deal with those problems, but another area we want to deal with is some of these landlords. These landlords who have some of these rat-infested traps and have people living in those and collecting rent. And another thing that we definitely will look at, and of course I want to do this in cooperation with other council members. I don't want to propose at all that Joe Reed is going to do everything alone. It's going to take some council members to do it, including the mayor. And I will be talking to him about it, and I think we have a very fine mayor. I think we'll be dealing with these problems. And what I want us to do is really enforce the codes, enforce the laws that will deny landowners from having these rat-infested traps where people are living in degradation. And these are the concerns that I would want us to deal with, too.
Are we not enforcing the code now?
Well, apparently we're not, because when I was campaigning, I went to some places that were just really outrageous and obnoxious, and they was really frightening, and put it bluntly, they were sickening. And I'm sure that the people didn't own some of these homes. They were renting, and I don't know who they're renting from, but we'll know in time.
Is it possible that there aren't sufficient code provisions to allow for enforcement?
If there are not enough, I will be introducing some, and I'll be asking the mayor and all the other council members to support them.
Now, the drainage problem, specifically in North Montgomery, has been listed as a priority item for city government for several years. How far up the list do you want to move that?
Top priority. I think we got to deal with that issue. I don't think we need to spare any effort. We shouldn't delay it another day to deal with those problems affecting people now. You know, there are some problems you can wait on for a month, some you can wait on for 6 months, some you need to do today. And I think those areas, and that area in particular, is one we need to deal with today.
The city government has historically refused to get involved in the issues involving the Montgomery County school system. However, as an educator, as a worker with the Alabama Education Association, do you propose any greater involvement with education in Montgomery?
Not so much as a worker on the AEA, the Alabama Education Association, to take no part in my candidacy. I might point out that it was reported that we had used some of the facilities, but it cost me $171.13. And that was paid before the press got it. I want to make that very clear. But back to the main issue. The AEA has took no position at all in my campaign. The Montgomery County teachers did. But even if the teachers had opposed my election, my commitment to education as a person would cause me to want Montgomery to want the city of government of Montgomery to do something about education. We have too many children walking to school. Those particularly who live under the 2-mile limit, we got to provide some kind of transportation for those children. Some of these children are 6 and 7 years old. You know, they're just absolutely too little to have to walk to school.
Well, doesn't that strike you as something that could create some...
Well, certainly we do not at this particular time. I think that it would be wonderful and marvelous if we could persuade Edward Kennedy, the senator from Massachusetts, to accept the nomination. I doubt that he will. I think that he will live true to his word that he is not a candidate. And I think that is tragic, really, for the Democratic Party, because I do not see another candidate who can really bring and unify the party.
Sir, I notice that you have excluded Alabama's Governor George Wallace, and I'm wondering just what your feelings are concerning his candidacy and whether or not you feel that he is qualified as a candidate for President of the United States.
Well, I certainly do not question whether he is qualified or not at this particular point. I really question whether or not the nation would unify behind a man like Governor Wallace, who once stood in the door of the University of Alabama and did so many things to prevent integration. He will have a terrible and awful time convincing the nation that he is no longer a racist because his name symbolized racism.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that by 1980, just 5 years from now, there will be a surplus of 140,000 college graduates each year. Between 1972 and 1985, there will be more than 18 million high-status jobs available. Unfortunately, as many as 22 million college graduates will be competing for those jobs. Thus, by 1985, there may be as many as 2.5 college graduates competing for every available professional job in our labor market. And just to keep things interesting, an estimated 120,000 trained professionals immigrating to America annually will increase the level of competition.
What the advisory committee recommends as a means of correcting this situation would be two things. First, that the governor of our state give immediate consideration to and in fact appoint blacks and women to the Alabama Board of Correction, and this needs to be done forthwith. In addition, the Central Classification Board, which board has the responsibility of assigning these inmates to their respective institutions, should be restructured and enlarged so that blacks and women can be named to and be a part of the assignment process for these inmates.
Pullman unit where vocational, educational, and work release programs are very limited.
Other findings of the advisory committee are: 1, more black inmates than white are performing menial tasks and not placed in positions which hold promise of decent incomes outside of prison walls. 2, the rehabilitation program provided by the Board of Corrections is insufficient to meet the needs of its 4,000 inmates. And 3, inmates are not compensated for their labor except for the few in the work release program. Thus, the majority of the inmates, when released, have neither sufficient skills nor earned savings to sustain themselves. Now, more than $1 million of the corrections budget comes from federal revenue sharing. The Board of Corrections is obligated not to discriminate, or it can suffer possible loss of federal funds.
And for the continuation of that great struggle for liberation that Martin Luther King Jr. led. I'm pleased to see so many of our young people in this audience, because the young people are our future. And I think we must be very concerned about what happens to the future and what kind of leaders that we are preparing to lead us on toward that promised land, the promised land that Martin Luther King Jr. talked about figuratively, but we want to make it happen right here in Selma, Alabama. I would
How would you look upon it after the Selma March? It's been all 10 years or so now. How would you look upon the changes in the South?
Well, the changes in the South have been most encouraging, perhaps far more than in the other regions of the country. Alabama stands out as the state that has seen more black elected officials come to office than any other state, and hopefully the groundwork laid for a new populist movement of genuine mutual respect between blacks and whites that will forge a new day for the South and for the country.
And out across.
I certainly am proud of the fact that Tuskegee is the pride of the swift-growing South, the mecca of black accomplishment in this country. Of course, we still have a long ways to go in Tuskegee, like all other cities. But I think that the philosophy that Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver exemplified so many years ago is now becoming a reality. The fact that people can work together in peace and harmony, that black people can determine their own destiny, that they can reach out and win friends among the white community and work together in the best interest of their community. So certainly I would say that Tuskegee is indeed the pride of the swift-growing South.
I've had the tremendous privilege of sitting and talking with them. And when you talk to people, you have a chance to look them straight in the eye and really find out what they're all about. And that was a great thing, because I found out that he was a dedicated man. He didn't use any rhetoric, he didn't use any lip service. He was a man of action.
And other black people to the state legislature right here in Alabama. I'm going to leave this spot and go to Alabama State College. Because I support 100% the demands of the students of that institution. All right. If we must study American history, then why can't we study black culture? For 244 years, our ancestors were slaves in this country. Crispus Attucks was a black man, the first one to die in the American Revolution, that taught us a lie, that there must not be taxation without representation. When Columbus discovered America, the captain, not a member of the crew, the captain of one of his ships named the Nita was a black man. We have 12 black men in the state legislature of our sister state of Georgia, and not a single black man in the state of Alabama. It's not because we do not vote, it's because something is wrong at the counting of those votes. Black folk are qualified. That's right. And we have paid our dues in this country. And I want to turn that television on me. I want you to tell them for me that we have paid our dues in this country. That we are a member of the club and we don't intend to lose. We were robbed of our culture in Africa. I say to you that we as black people have a background. If the University of Alabama can have a board of regents,
I told him that type something old. Talk to you, Jerry. I think that's a good look. It's Channel 13 you do. Okay. Good. All right. Yes, sir.